Anyway,
Got it. Meeting
got
recorded
it.
in progress. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Awesome.
So yeah. So he's Dante. He's Dante. I'm James. But so we needed to jump on as
Yeah.
quickly as possible, and because we both work, that meant a day later after the Pascal news. And like most, I'm sure, men our age that love basketball and love sports, we're part of a group chat. So shout out to our friends. But we quickly identified that we needed to talk about this a little bit more on kind of the historical
Mhm.
significance of Pascal and his place amongst Raptors history. So yeah, so man, yeah, thanks for making this happen.
Oh no, man, thank you. It was a good idea, and I'm always down for just jumping on and just having a conversation about whatever. I don't care. And certainly, Raptors are close to our hearts, man. We've been following this team since day one,
Yeah.
and this is I tweeted it out the other day. This is the end of the greatest era since the VC highlight, and the highs of Vince Carter. I think that this is the greatest era of Raptors basketball at this stretch here. Uh,
Yes.
you know, Ending with Pascal going out the door there, but certainly bittersweet moments. Had I don't know. I think the OG trade caught me a little off, like made me ponder. This one felt more inevitable. So when the news broke and like the Twitter banter wasn't as noisy, I guess, as when it was with OG. I
Right.
think it was more of like okay, well, this is what it is. There was no like, well, who fleeced who, like there wasn't that debate. It was just like, okay, this is what it is. Let's just kind of roll forward there, right? So kind of like a tepid response, like fallout off that online, but that's okay. Like I don't think there's too many negative things you can say about Pascal in terms of what he contributed. Like, why wouldn't we wish him well out the door? Why wouldn't we want to see him in a good situation? He gave
Absolutely.
everything to us and vice versa, right?
Yeah, he's
I
definitely
do
like
have like a ton.
no, go run with it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I do have like a bunch of questions, and I did pull some numbers and just kind of like didn't know where you want to start off or whatever. But just your general impressions on when the news first hit for you. Like, was this something you were expecting, or were you surprised at all?
Perfect. So as you know, I'd say I think the last few years you've had your beat more to what's been going on with the Raptors day in and day out than I have. So I applaud you for that and all of the efforts that you have to make this cohesive, because I think a lot of my thought. So my initial thought was like, should I be more upset about this? Which kind of led to me asking the question, like, where does he rank in Raptors lore? Because again, man, like, you know, definitely like probably the best feel good story in Raptor history in terms of like playing basketball for only what, like 10 years or whatever, and going down that road. I saw the clip from their NBA finals run in the playoffs when the person asked him and Danny Green on the stage, and they said, Pascal, you've only been playing, competitive basketball for 7 years.
Mm.
And Danny Green was like, what? Like, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So definitely anything. So it's nothing to take. I would never want to take away from that aspect, because I think that everything about him puts him as like kind of that feel good spot. I think my questioning and kind of why I wanted to talk to you about it was just, I think we have him in different parts of that kind of top 5 or 6 Raptors of all
Hmm.
time. But again, I think it might be because you've watched him a lot more than I have, right? Like up close, that whole championship season, you were covering every game and writing about it, right? So yeah, I think that our perspectives are a little bit different, but I think we can both honestly say that, yeah, like great dude. I got the chance to
Yeah.
meet him right when I worked for the Swoosh. He was a guest speaker. I had a chance to like wish him luck on his season. Found out that he was only like, a little bit taller than me, which I was excited about. Kept my hoop dreams alive. But yeah, man. So any questions you want to throw out, feel free. Like, let's dive in. But I think we can both honestly say
Well,
that,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's interesting.
yeah,
Well,
go.
give me your top five Raptors though. I mean, like that's what pretty much prompted this whole conversation was you just kind of threw that out there in the chat group, and I kind of jumped on that. But
Yeah.
if you don't have like, what is your order then?
Oh, so without an order, just rhyming it off. I'm gonna say, my tops are, it's definitely Vince, Kawhi, DeMar, Kyle, Pascal,
And Pascal. Yeah.
Pascal, and then there's like Bosch, and then, but for me, and okay, you asked me initially. For me, initially, DeRozan is higher than Bosch, but I might be a little bit skewed because I think this is that
Hmm.
I love Lowry, but I'm not one of those people that anointed him like the greatest Raptor of all time. Uh,
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that obviously his longevity through the championship year
Hmm.
definitely elevated
Hmm.
him. But me personally, I think that I even still have DeMar over Lowry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that what that's crazy. So for me, like I got like Lowry number one, and then probably Kawhi, and then maybe Pascal, Vince, DeMar, like that.
Yeah.
The
So
the championship goes a long way, but like what do you or what are your other intangibles here? Are you basing this on like cultural influence? Is it because you're like impressionable at the time when they became hot or something like that?
yeah,
I mean,
man.
there's not a there's some parallels between the DeMar story and the Pascal story in terms of being guys that just grinded their way to get to their position, but Pascal's high is higher.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So a few good questions. So you and I are both old enough that our first Raptor game together, we were in high school, and it was a exhibition game, if you remember, down at Skydome. It was Vince's rookie year. So that was our first time to see Vince. But yeah, so for me, Vince is always going to be number one. And to your point, I think it's because he came along when I was so into like playing basketball, right? High school
mhm.
level, just into basketball, and then just watching what he and those early Raptors were able to do as far as just gaining that momentum. Like, right, I was lucky enough to be at the first ever playoff game. Um, they lost, but whatever. Like, it was the first ever playoff game in franchise history. But so for me,
Right.
allow it to
So
be one.
so is it fair to say that that's not just a part of what he did on the court, it's because of just the world he was able to open up for
The
you, the
cultural
basketball world. And
influence.
yeah, and even
Yeah.
like in rap videos and stuff, you heard him in just different media. Like it made Toronto a thing.
Yes,
So
exactly.
okay, that's
So,
fair. Yeah.
so that's why I don't see like him being topped in my eyes. Kawhi is, it's like I said, it's kind of like the enigma of Kawhi because
Hmm.
the one year, but everyone knows we don't win a championship without him. But when you talk about what he meant and what he brought, I think that's why um there's a debate to be had, because do you really include him after only being one year? But if you do, I think he's probably my two, just because of that championship, right? So now that we're thinking
Certainly. And
about it, yeah,
at that time, during the run, I was covering the Raps, but doing reports after every game, not just the once a week. So like I saw Kawhi like super up close, and that's
yes,
why I got him as my number two as well. Like that skill level was incredible, and I think I took it for granted at the time and hasn't seen it since. Now we have a point of reference that no one else has been able to reach. So it was
dude,
incredible.
that's a whole other topic that we can go into, is just that team and
Hmm.
kind of what could have been. But yeah, okay, so
Hmm.
we're divided on number one, but we got
Hmm.
Kawhi at number two. So then who's your
And then
three?
you got
Say
then is Pascal for me.
then it's Pascal. So I think I'm gonna go DeRozan. Yeah, I'm gonna go DeRozan, and here's why. And you know this already, but here's why. It's strictly around how he took responsibility and ownership of the team when Bosch was traded. And
Sure.
that's right. So for me, he tweeted out, right? I got us.
Hmm.
And nothing, and he, right, we all know his story. Just, every year he seemed to work on something and get better and better. But for him to be still very young in his career and like say that, acknowledge that, it's not something that I've heard too often in the NBA, where after, right, a star player is traded and that next player is saying, "Hey, like, don't worry, this is my team now." Like, and that's something
Mm.
that even publicly, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear Pascal say that when he could have.
No, you don't. No, you don't hear that very often. I do think that DeMar's the kind of player that resonates with a guy like you, like a grinder, a guy that really worked for everything that he had to do. And he was that one player for me that you could literally see year to year, like something he did tangibly better. It's like, oh
Right.
shoot, he worked on his left hand. Oh, he worked on his mid range. Oh, he worked on his handles. Like you could literally see that progress. So you knew the work ethic was there. Big pick. So he's your four,
He's my
and then
three.
you got Pascal. Oh,
And then
sorry,
I
you got
got,
your three.
see, that's the thing. So then I still have Lowry like sitting around, like waiting to be,
Yeah,
picked up in the schoolyard. Um, so I don't know if it's Lowry or
interesting.
Pascal. So do you have anything, I mean, to sway me
Oh
if
gosh,
it's so
not.
outrageous to be Pascal versus Lowry, right? For a number four, like, and why I should choose Pascal?
Well, no, I don't, because I do think that your perception is taking into more into consideration than what was just on the court. And these are like personal impressions that these people had on you at
Yes.
different times, right? But it's and you specifically as James, like not just
Yeah.
generally anybody, like you specifically. Because like the euphoria of that championship is unmatched. Like I don't it's tough for me to not have that as one of my top three spots because we've never seen anything like that. We may never see anything like that again. Like that was fucking
True.
incredible, right? So like he gave that to us. He had a great run in that finals. You know, what a second duo scorer or whatever, him and Kawhi, right? Scored the
Yeah.
most points in the playoffs or something. What do I got here? Fifth all time in points, third all time in rebounds, fifth all time in assists. It's pretty solid, run there. I mean, those
Yeah.
those numbers are going to be tough to catch as well. And he was a workhorse. Not to mention the shit that he did in G League. All star there and
MVP, right?
MVP
Yeah.
there as well too, right? And starting from the basketball without borders, like that's a crazy story unto itself, and I'm sure that's going to be made into a documentary. But
Yeah, I just heard
I don't
that
know.
today with Masai saying Pascal was already enrolled in the pastoral college
Yeah,
and only went to Basketball Without Borders in South Africa because he wanted to visit his sister who was living in South Africa. Yeah,
yeah.
it's got to be a story,
A
at least,
movie,
yeah,
like I saw like an early picture of him at Basketball Without Borders, where he's looking like super young and like really like from that part of the world. Like I was gonna tweet, I was like, this random African is gonna change my life. Like he literally this random dude in the middle of Africa is
right?
so important to me because of what he gave to the city. Yeah, so okay, so that was sort of like my first initial questions was like sort of what does Siakam mean to you and sort of the legacy in Toronto. So kind of going over the top five, kind of articulate some of that. But is there more to if we're going to focus a little bit more on Siakam personally? Like, was there more to him? I mean, like he didn't have the flash of Vince or the pizzazz of DeMar or whatever. Like, but he was a workhorse, man. He was underrated his whole career. And I
Yeah,
do think that now that he's Indiana, we're going to see him at the foul line like crazy. He's going to start to get that respect. But for you, like, is there anything else? You said you met him, right? So does that not
yeah.
that
Well,
means a little something too?
I think his timeline with the Raptors, as people started jumping on that bandwagon hot and heavy in like 17, 18, and then 19 for the championship run, for him to stay as that figure that people could almost rely on as he is the Raptors, he's still with us. And the fact that he was younger and he's very, great with the media, great with the kids, great. And so he just had that persona of that
Multiple
younger,
languages.
yeah, the younger generation of Raptor fans that they could align with, kind of like Fred VanVleet was as well, but Pascal even staying through till this year. So I think that he played a significant role in kind of carrying on that tradition, even though I think my thing is that he was never like, it was never, this is Pascal's team. He was never like openly thrust into, he's the guy and there's no questioning. I think even to start this year, like it's always okay, Scotty's got to take a next step. Scotty's, we're building with Scotty, which is okay. But I think
Mm-hmm.
even when I think about that DeMar Pascal comparison, it's that Pascal is always going to be that amazing second, third option. But, and I know there's, you got to surround people with the right people. So that's a whole other topic as well. But
Sure.
he just, never led us on his back, like on a deep run. But to your point, like workhorse throughout the regular season, he almost single-handedly got us that game one victory against Golden State. He put up like 32 points or something, but he was never openly like the guy, the way that DeMar, Kawhi for his year, and Vince were, right?
Sure. I guess you could say like when they put the graphics up for the matchups on TNT or ESPN, it's like later this week the Raptors are going to play Chicago or whatever, something like that. Like before you'd see Vince or whatever, you'd see Kyle, whatever, you see Fred, you rarely see Siakam's face there. And like now you see Barnes or whatever, like he was never christened the franchise guy kind of thing. But yeah, I mean that's a tough. I mean, is that his? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not his
interesting.
fault, right? But it's just one of those
No.
things where it's like does putting him above a DeMar, like, is that saying that, okay, everything else considered, if it was him instead of DeMar, that the Raptors would have went further than they did with DeMar over those, there's all that noise. But I think for me, it's just that it's like DeMar was like, okay, this is my team. Everyone else like fall in line and let's do this. Whereas Pascal, again, at least publicly, was never like, this is my team. Who knows? Behind closed doors, maybe he was running it, the past few years. But that's my thing, is that, and that's why I think that's why he's under DeMar in my books.
Okay, well, like taking a step back and looking at the team bigger picture. Did you see the press conference, the entire thing?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I checked out as much as I could, but once he started talking about learning how to dance, I'm like, okay, I think I got enough. They're gonna repeat that emotional moment there where he was crying over and over again, I'm sure. I don't know. Seemed very sincere, but whatever. Do you think that the Raptors on the whole fumbled this whole post Kawhi deal? I do think things like the Tampa season, COVID, Aaron Baines, like just like things like that really kind of threw monkey wrenches and everything of what could have been.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
but could we,
It's
I mean,
they couldn't have lost both OG and Pascal for nothing and then have neither of them resign. I think that's some of the
yeah.
pressure, right? As well. Like what happened with Fred. So, but yeah, I think there's arguments to be made that it wasn't handled as best case scenario. But at the end of the day, we don't know the trades that were offered. We don't know, much because
But
we know. Go ahead.
but do you think that not Kawhi, Masai like waited like did he believe in Vision 6-9 too strongly? Like he just held on to OG, he wouldn't give it up. Like there's an argument to be said last season trade deadline, maybe if we moved OG, we could have gotten Miles and like a better package back and that could have been our core because there was talks back then, right? So were we too in love with 6-9, and is Vision 6-9 dead?
I mean, I think we're already seeing OG flourishing, and I think Pascal, to your point, is going to flourish, along Hallie, in Indiana. But yeah, it's kind of like you don't want to give up those pieces because of their potential, but sometimes, whether it's too many cooks in the kitchen or too many players that are too similar in nature, and it just kind of ends up taking away a little bit to not get over that hump. But yeah, I think they're in full, what's the new acronym, like barbecue, like BBQ,
Yeah.
right? But yeah,
That's
you
cute.
led
That's
off with,
cute.
this is right. You led off with, this is the end of that era, and it's a totally new clean slate, with this team. A lot of people think that more moves are going to happen, with
Oh yeah,
right, with
yeah.
Bruce. They
I
think
just think that like
you
it's
know
Vision 6-9 is so ambitious, but if those guys can't shoot, then then it's a wash. It's just a lot of clutter, which is
yeah,
kind of too bad. And then you saw Koloko catching a stray, as I mentioned in my Twitter,
yeah,
getting released. That's kind of a tough. That's another monkey wrench, right? Like another player that who knows where would be if we had Koloko. Maybe we wouldn't have needed that Yak trade from last season, and
yeah.
then who knows, right? But you could play that all day, and I guess it's not uncommon for things not to work out. Like we're not even talking about super teams, but so many super teams don't work out.
Right.
Even going back to like when Steve Nash was on the Lakers and that squad, and they kind of like with Karl Malone and shit like that. You know what I mean? And we see it every season. Big guys come together. Whatever's going on in Phoenix this season too, right? Like sometimes it doesn't work out.
Right.
Does make me question Yak's role as well going forward. Is he a movable piece to you, or do you think there's still value with him on the squad?
I think there's still value just because eventually you gotta match
Me
up with
too.
a big, right? At
Eventually you
some
do.
point.
Yeah.
So, and he's serviceable in that way. And he's, better than, he understands, he reads the game really well, right? So I think that there is value. Um,
And you
but
don't have to do anything for him. Like he just
right.
fits in well and he knows what he has to do. So like even with respect to like coaching, you wouldn't have to like coach him up or you wouldn't have to give him plays. Like I do
Yeah,
think there's value. Like I
his game's not affected by the amount of shots that he gets. He's that professional in that regard, right? He's
yeah.
gonna play hard regardless. But I think, if I can just tie a bow on our convo here and get some final thoughts on this particular topic. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's really, I think I was kind of like just the overall feeling, because I guess maybe my initial shock about the Pascal news was that I didn't feel as emotional about it as I did when, like we talked about the other big names, when they left either via free agency or via
Sure.
trade. So what are your, like, how, like, does
Uh-huh.
this rank up there for you, or how
I
did you
wonder. I
like this?
wonder. I mean, every other move, I guess, was it just that much more dramatic? Like is that why, they stood up more? Like this was more like your cat's dying, you take it to the vet, you give it its needle. It's kind of a peaceful thing. Whereas like everything else, like the DeMar trade was like a car crash, and your cat just got run over by
Right.
someone. And so I do think there's a little bit more of that shock to it, especially someone beloved like a DeMar. I don't know, man. That's a great question. Like why? And you're right. Like I didn't feel those same emotions. I was like, okay, well, it's maybe we're maturing, you and myself.
Yeah.
I do have one last question for you on my end though.
Okay.
Has he done enough to warrant a retired number? Are
Pascal.
we gonna see his jersey? Yeah.
Uh,
Those top five that we listed, are those guaranteed retirees? Like is Pascal up there? I
yes. Yes. And
I mean, no one's gonna want 43, like
true.
it's a safe number to retire,
Yeah, it's a
not like a
safe number
Carmelo
to
Anthony Jokic
retire.
situation, right?
Uh yeah, I mean, I think automatically the key contributors to that championship team are gonna get love, and him service to your, top five in a lot of those categories, especially assists. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, at this point, I'll say sure. Yeah, yeah, he will.
Yeah.
We're not a storied franchise that's been around forever. So if we're gonna start building eventually, who knows how long it'll take. But yeah, I think his Raptor tenure is long enough and
Yeah.
productive enough. Championship, like we mentioned, all the positive things he brought to the community. So I'll say yes. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, me too. It'd be nice to see that. It'd be nice to see a bronze collection of like maybe the team from the Slam
Yeah,
picture, like all bronzed out and people can picture. And then you got Kawhi off to the side in the shot pose, squatting there. But yeah, definitely, I think he's warranted enough. I mean, man, nothing but respect and love and success for him going forward. I think he's going to get a nice welcomed return when he comes back. But
absolutely.
I'm excited about the way the team's going forward now too. And yeah, all things
We'll see
positive
what
going forward, I
happens.
guess.
Yes.
We'll
All
see
right,
what
Dante.
happens.
Well, thank you for getting together. We're going to chop this up,
Yes,
put
sir.
it out on socials, and this definitely will be the first of many convos that we have, because I love doing this. I love partnering with you. And yeah, thanks for jumping on, because I think both you and I were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, let's just talk about this. We can't just keep typing.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, good. I love this, and yeah, I'm excited about the next time. Hopefully, we don't have to wait until someone else gets traded before we jump on this. So,
Good point.
keep me posted, and I'm always available for you, buddy.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, peace. Go
All right.
Raptors, baby. Go
Go
Raptors.
Raptors.